Remember, consequence is not a punishment. It's not punitive because you're calm, you're loving, you're clear, you're certain that this is what he needs to learn to make it happen. Hey everyone, Dr. Mark Schillinger, founder of the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend, a rite of passage adventure camp for young men ages 13 to 20, and helps them get ready for the challenges of the adult world. And I'm also the founder of Challenging Teenage Sons, an organization that's dedicated to helping parents and their teen sons have more caring and cooperative relationships. So I want to continue on with this series of videos on consequences. And I want to give you a quick review first before we jump into how to give positive discipline consequences. Parents don't love to do consequences because it's hard, it's painful, it's brutal. And usually their sons get all angry at them and think they're the worst person in the world. So here's the thing. I mentioned to you on one of the videos that you have to be dispassionate or indifferent. Dispassionate means that you care, of course, about the well-being of your son, and you don't do anything about it. So if you're giving a consequence and he says you're a big jerk or whatever, of course, he's going to say whatever he's going to say. You have to be indifferent. You have to be dispassionate. So when you're giving a consequence, just like being dispassionate when your son's yelling at you, you have to be calm. Always calm. You're calm no matter what he's doing. You're going to change the brain patterning that you're all in as a family, and he'll start to calm down because you are. All right. So when you're giving a consequence, you definitely have to be dispassionate. You have to communicate knowing that what you're saying is you're going to be calm. You're going to be really clear, crystal clear, which we've talked about before. You're going to be really concise. A couple of sentences is all you need. And you're going to be certain that what you're telling him is true about consequences so that he can practice for making it out there in the outside world. All right. And then we talked about, you have to have some consequences. There are parents that I mentor who think that their son's going to figure it out on their own. Maybe that was true in the heyday of America in 1950s and 60s when I grew up, where pretty much everyone in my neighborhood in Queens kind of policed everybody's kids. So we kind of did learn that out on the street. I don't think that's happening today because the only thing they're learning is how to move further away from you. So there has to be consequences. And then I explained a little bit how I explain consequences to young men. So there's a whole video on that. Please become masterful on how to explain consequences. Essentially, and I'll show this with 2 slides, I let young people know that the parents, I say your parents didn't create consequences. The world is a consequence. Everything that happens is usually going to be a reaction. So everything that you think, say, or do, going to probably come back to you. It could be good or bad. That's a consequence. It could be fair or unfair. That's a consequence. So we talked about that. And then briefly here, I let the young men know, and I show them the slide and say, just like these, balls swinging here, everything you do is going to affect something else, which is going to affect something else. And if you're responsible, you can't blame other people for whatever you set in motion. And I also say that a consequence is a way to get back into integrity or in alignment with the values or the virtues that your parents have set up for you in your house. And we've talked about that already, how to set up your son with 5 or 6 virtues that he knows he needs to learn to make it in the outside world, or to get back into integrity with his own values that he was born with, or the values of the school or the community. All right, so that's a quick review. So now let's jump into how do you do positive discipline consequences. I'm going to show you a list of them in a moment. Basically, what the slide is showing you is this. I like to give young men 2 choices. I'm recommending that parents give their sons 2 choices about a consequence. And remember, a consequence is not a punishment. It's not punitive because you're calm, you're loving, you're clear, you're certain that this is what he needs to learn to make it happen. All right. So you may ideally find a consequence that matches the virtue that was violated. So let's just say your son wasn't being responsible for taking out the garbage on Wednesday night, or maybe he took out the garbage on Wednesday night, but he didn't bring it back on Thursday morning. So he would be irresponsible. And so you will let him know that there could be a consequence. The next time he does it again. So you can let him know there's a consequence. So now you can give him some 2 choices that ideally relate to responsibility. So you might say here, like it says on the slide, well, now you're going to get the chance to show us that you can be responsible by serving dinner to everybody. You might even add, you have to set the table, serve the food, clear the food, and wash the dishes for a week. And just say, thank you for hearing that. Now, in the last video we did, we talked about how to respond if they say no. I'll go over that again in a minute. Here's one that they won't choose. And so you might be able to get them into another consequence that you want them to do. Like, okay, you have to spend 15 minutes a day for 7 days with me to go for a walk, which is this one here. And we get to discuss things that are really important to you, son, in your life. And that may be because your son refuses to tell you what's going on when you say, hey, son, how was your day? And he goes, I don't know. Well, there might be a consequence for that because he's not connecting. He's not engaging with you. So 2 consequences you offer. And then you should ask your son, well, what do you think, dude? What do you think that you might do to get you back into integrity or in alignment with these virtues that we've already told you about that you need to learn in order to make it out there? What do you recommend you do? And that'll usually blow his mind, which is a great thing because you're treating him like an adult. Right now, he may say something really immature like, well, I think if you give me your credit cards and the keys to the car, I'll be cleaned up. That'll be my consequence. So obviously, we ain't looking for that response. My point is that he might be impressed that you're asking him what he thinks. And by the way, if he gives you a good response that really could teach him the lesson, do it. Just do it. Because let's see if he actually follows up on that consequence that he said he was going to do and behaves better, more responsibly after. All right, so let me show you another document here that I think I can do. So this is a list of positive discipline consequences. Positive discipline. Positive discipline is meant to teach a lesson. It's not meant to lash out. Remember, we've said in other videos, especially around consequences, you want to act more like a mentor and not like a parent. That means you're not going to be doing so many things for your son. And it means that you have to teach him what he needs to learn. And by not doing these things, like you're kind of withdrawing as a parent. So you have to teach him, and we have to give him positive discipline consequences because that's how he's going to learn to do something. Because if you don't do this kind of styling, and it's all punitive, and you're all yelling, and you're always taking shit away, you're not going to get a young man who's going to be more responsible for the most part. Right? He'll only get more responsible for avoiding you. Just saying. All right. So if you don't have this list, please email me at info@challengingteenagesons.com, and I'll send you the list. Okay, there's a bazillion things on here, and there's plenty more on the internet, I'm sure, that you can find. When you give a consequence, you don't have to do it on the spot, especially if you're all riled up and you can't calm down and be clear and concise and certain. So you might say, son, I'm going to let you know that there will be a consequence for this so you can really learn a good lesson about responsibility or accountability or cooperation or respect or honesty, whatever it may be. And then you can say, I'll get back to you later tonight. Or I'm going to discuss it with dad or mom. I'm going to get back to you by tomorrow after school. So don't make shit up when you're all riled up. Get clear about what consequences you go through this list or many other ones I'm sure you could find on the internet that you think will match the violation of the virtue that you know your son needs to learn. One thing that I do want to show you is I want to show you this. Give me 1 second. Because you see how it says here, have him the first thing I put on there is have him watch one of my Right Skills for Self-Mastery videos. And then have him write a 1-paragraph summary of what he learned. Now, parents have been doing this for the last year since I created these modules for young men. Let me show you what they are. Workshops on Demand are a series of workshops that I've been putting on for young men. You can see the titles here and here. And here's one that I just finished last week, helping young men create really healthy routines. So the reason why I list that as a positive discipline consequence is because if your son watches one of these programs because, let's say, he's been irresponsible a lot, or he doesn't manage his time very well, well, I guarantee you that if he watches this, you may have to sit with him, but if he watches it, he's going to learn all the basics that a teenager needs to learn to manage his time. So that could be a consequence, was my main point there. If you need to get that document, just email me and let me know. Next thing I want to say about consequences is this. I know that young men don't like to do them. Who does? However, I do know this too, especially as being a leader of a nonprofit and leader of my other business here, Challenging Teenage Sons, and my chiropractic office for that matter. I have to lead a lot of people. And what I've learned is this. If you are a good leader and you're not punitive and you are calm, clear, concise, and certain, most people are going to follow you. They are. They just are. So at the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend, when young men like your son come to this event, because most of the young men who attend this event are just like your son, I promise. If you're watching this video, I guarantee you, your son's probably going to do great at the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend. Well, here's what I'm saying. We have mentors there. They're all trained to be calm, clear, and concise and certain. That's it. And they don't negotiate the consequences when there needs to be one. They just keep repeating it. And after a while, the young men get tired of hearing, well, this is what you need to do to clean it up. And they just go do it. Because there's no banter. We don't treat them like 5-year-olds and entertain their silly ideas about why they shouldn't do it. Here's a good story. This was like many years ago, 7 years ago. So at the Young Men's Weekend, young men are on teams. And there's usually 7 or 8 young men to a team, and there's always about 60 young men, let's say, at the event. So the young men's teams go to different events throughout the day. And on this particular day, a team was just coming from the obstacle course. And it's a great physical challenges for them. It's amazing to watch them overcome things that they never thought they could do, right? So this team had just finished it, and they were all hyped up and really psyched up. And they were then supposed to go to the dining room for lunch, like all the other teams. However, there was this one young guy, and he left something back at the obstacle course. So he ran back to get it, but he didn't tell anybody. So when the team got to the dining room, but there's a young man missing, the young men on that team were not allowed to eat. So the young man showed up, but he kind of snuck in. And so he said that he didn't do anything wrong, that he was just like, in the front part of the dining room so nobody could see him. Basically, he was lying, and his team knew it, but he wouldn't own it. So there was a little bit of a quandary because the leader of the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend was like, what are you going to do to clean this up? And he denied he did anything wrong. So the young man who led the team, because at the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend, we always have the young men leading the young men, and we switch off every few hours to get a chance to do this. The young man was really kind of puzzled, like, what should we do? And so he did something brilliant. He had the whole team do the consequence, which was 25 push-ups. So the whole team did the 25 push-ups. The young man refused to do it. He just didn't want to do it. But the young men, the other 7 or 8 young men did it. And so, of course, the mentors. And so then when they were done, nothing really changed. The young men still were not going to eat. But then the other young guy who was kind of in the back of the dining room, who claims he wasn't late, all of a sudden, he just hits the floor and starts pumping out 25 push-ups. Everybody was watching him do it. He did it alone. And when he got up, and we were all like flummoxed, like, what is he doing? When he got up, he said, I was late. I was late. And they didn't want to watch my guys clean up for me, so I did it. And everybody in that dining room just gave him a standing ovation. Like, he got accountable, which we define as owning what you should have done and not done without excuses. So he was like a hero now. And so the lesson that we gave the young men about that I'm encouraging you to give to your son is this. When you do consequences that you should be doing, the person who's giving you the consequence, whatever it may be, or the situation that's giving you a consequence, whatever that may be, when you clean it up, you'll have more respect for yourself. And the person who asked you to do a consequence will respect you more because you just handled it. You just did it. We call it the Young Men's Ultimate Weekend. We knock it off and move on. So when you're given a consequence, and especially if your son does it, please don't bring it up hours or days or years later. Just move on from it. Don't hound him about it. Just move on. All right, one last slide here, and then we'll let you go. I want to wind down by saying this. I consider myself a rite of passage expert. I've been putting them on for 26 years, and I use them in other ways when I'm doing life coaching for people and mentoring families, with lots of mini rite of passages when I'm mentoring families. So my point is simply this. I have no doubt that for tens of thousands of years, there have been rite of passages going on for young women and young men. No doubt. And the whole idea of these rite of passages was to help the young men and the young women get that they have to earn the respect of their tribe or their family, and that's how they do it. And when they do that, now they're part of the tribe, and now they're actually expected to be part of the community where everybody's got to cooperate and get things done. So with your son, what I'm saying is that when he does his consequence, hold him in a higher regard. You just thank him and just move on. Because we want him to learn the lessons about consequences, because it'll make your home operate better. You'll have more cooperative relationships. And by the way, this just in, he may clean you up. You may have failed to keep your word about something, and there should be a consequence, whatever it may be. Now, guaranteed that he's going to try to make up something that's really severe, whatever, you don't have to go there. You can apologize. You can just apologize. That's all you need to do. Or you can make something up that would show him the respect of the consequence. But don't make it a big deal. Just pick something and keep it simple. Maybe he'll pick something that's actually really intelligent, and you may do that. And that's how you'll have a caring and cooperative family. Okay, so if you need that handout, that document about positive discipline consequences, let me know. If you want to start receiving my weekly free email blogs, email me, let me know. And I recommend that you feel free asking me questions. Like, just ask me questions. I always respond personally. And the way that you reach me is at info@challengingteenagesons.com. info@challengingteenagesons.com. With any questions, any concerns, I'd be happy to respond. Thank you so much for watching the video today.